In today's video, I'm going to talk about vision statements for internal audit. Now, I know a lot of people may have vision statements. You may have a strategic plan. And so you may be thinking, check, I've already checked this off. I don't need this video. Well, I would suggest that you consider listening to this entire video because there's going to be some information in here that you may not have considered. And in fact, last week during our Audit Leader Forum call, the topic came up about vision statements. So one of the people in the group asked, we don't have a vision statement, and I'm not sure that I need one, right? So they just kind of asked the group, hey, does anybody else have a vision statement? And most of the people on the call had vision statements. And as we started talking about them more, and I shared some examples of some actual vision statements, the consensus was that, hold it, I have this vision statement, I have a strategic plan, but it's been a while since I looked at it. And how good is it really? And are there ways that I can improve on the vision statement? So I wanted to talk about that today. Because again, like I said, the consensus from pretty much everyone who even had one was it's probably time to reassess. So let's go through and talk today about how you can do that. And so to start with, there's been changes to the IIA standards. So if you're following the standards, they require that you have a vision statement and that you have a strategic plan. Okay. And that's kind of the basics. There's some other things along with that too. But for the most part, those are the things, right, to be considering or to thinking about. And so to start with, I want to talk a little bit about mission, vision, and values. Because in the strategic planning phase, one of the first steps is looking at the mission, vision, and values of the organization. Now, as I said, the standards only require a vision statement. They don't require a mission. They don't require values. It may be a good idea to have a mission and values as well, but you do need to have a mission statement. And so there's confusion a lot of times between, well, what's the difference between a mission statement and a vision statement? So the main difference between a mission statement and a vision statement, a mission statement describes what you do, okay? And a vision statement describes what you aspire to be or what you want to be in the organization, right? What you do versus what you aspire to be. And that aspiration part of it is why it's included in strategic planning, right? Because in order for us to get to where we want to be, we need to have a plan and decide the strategies or stratagem that we're going to take to help us get to that point. Okay. So that's kind of the difference between the two. Now, I've created a full 8-hour course on strategy that talks more about vision statements as well, where you can get more information on exactly how to do this. But I wanted to talk a little bit today to give you some ideas, right, for you to start considering going back and looking at your vision statement. And there's some specific reasons why you may want to do that. Vision statements are a great communication method with your team, with your executive peers, and with your audit committee as well. In fact, having one that is tailored to your organization, that's relevant to your strategic plan, will actually help you get more funding, and it'll show more of your relevance to the organization as well. Okay, so vision statements, right? Now, as we're looking at this, one thing to be considering is looking out over a specific time horizon. Maybe that's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it happens to be for your organization. But what you need to be thinking about is, what does internal audit in my organization need to look like, let's say 5 years from now? in order for us to provide, right, the services and value to our organization that it needs from us at that point. And so that's where the aspiration comes in, right? Is what do we need to look like 5 years from now? Now, I've gone back. I'll actually share some actual vision statements from internal audit teams here with you shortly, so that way we can learn a little bit about what others are doing. We can learn from what they're doing, what you may like, what you may not like, and maybe some other lessons and things that we can learn to improve our own vision statements. And so, again, this is relevant whether you already have a vision statement or if you need to create one, right? Because if you already have one, it's probably time to reassess it. If you don't have one, it's probably time to create one. Okay. Now, again, as I told you on the Audit Leader Forum call, as we went around the room and people were sharing, there were a lot of people that were like, oh, yeah, we've had one for 12 years. We've had one for 5 years. Okay. Well, if you've had one for that long, maybe it's time to reassess and make sure that it's still relevant, right? Not that you did the exercise, you checked the box, you put it on the shelf, and you never thought about it again. Okay. So let's go through now and talk a little bit about the vision statements, and I will share with you some actual statements. Okay. Because I think this helps to kind of put it into context. Now, in general, your vision statement should be something that is customized to your organization. And so I kind of joke, don't just copy what somebody else has done. Don't just copy what the IIA has done and say, aha, there's my vision. You need to be looking at and customize it for your organization and the kind of internal audit work that you're doing and the kind of work that you will be doing in the future. Okay. And so let me go through and just read some of these statements, and then we'll talk about each one of them. Okay. And so again, these are actual vision statements from internal audit functions. So the first one, vision statement says to partner in promoting a culture of accountability, transparency, and continuous improvement across the organization. Okay. So they've got some nice words in there like culture of accountability, transparency, continuous improvement, right? Those kind of sound like some values that have been incorporated into the vision statement. But when I read this, right, I wonder, well, what part of the organization does this relate to? Because it is so generic that it could relate to purchasing, it could relate to marketing, it could relate to engineering, right? That any of those groups could say this. And so one suggestion that I have is make sure that your vision statement, if it's standalone, that people actually understand, hey, this relates to internal audit. Okay. So that's one thing that we can learn. So is your statement so generic, right, that it could relate to anybody, or is it specific enough, right, that it relates to internal audit? Okay, another one. To be a trusted partner, providing timely and insightful assurance and consulting services that build trust and confidence. Okay. I think that's, for me, my own opinion, I think that's better than the first one. It uses some words like trusted partner, right? Because a lot of times we say things like trusted advisor. And again, they use trusted partner, where maybe, people from the IA may say trusted advisor. And so there's a learning for us as well, is use words that are relevant to your organization or that will land well with people there. So trusted advisor, right, may be good in your organization, or something like trusted partner may be better. And so if trusted partner is better, then use trusted partner. Okay. Providing timely and insightful assurance and consulting. So there again, it brings up the two different things from the definition of internal auditing. that typically we provide assurance and we provide consulting or advisory services. And again, the words you use can vary. But here's what I'll tell you as well, right? Is in some organizations, they only want you to provide assurance. They don't want you really providing advice or consulting services. So if you're in an organization like that, you may or may not want to use the word consulting or advisory, right? If the expectations are, hey, we only want you to do assurance work, and 5 years from now, we still only want you to be doing assurance work, then maybe assurance is all that you need to have in there, right? But then they also talk about building trust and confidence, right? Because again, in the future, they want to make sure that there's trust and confidence for the function. Okay. The next one, to be a valued partner. So see here, instead of saying trusted partner, they're saying valued partner. But to be a valued partner with management, providing assurance and consulting services that help the organization achieve its strategic goals. Okay, so now this one actually pulls in the idea of strategic goals or strategic objectives. Now, again, in my opinion, I like this being in there because I like, the idea that we are tailoring what we are doing to make sure that we're helping the organization meet its strategy, we're helping the organization meet its objectives. Okay, the next one. Internal audit will provide value-added audits and advisory services with objectivity, fairness, openness, and in accordance with the highest professional and ethical standards. Okay, so again, this one pulls in a lot of value words, right? Like objectivity, fairness, openness, right, and professional and ethical standards. And so it's pulling into me, a lot of it is really just incorporating the values into it. But again, it's talking about value-added audits and advisory services. So again, is the word value added, right? Again, that's a term that we may use, but is that a word that makes sense to your organization? If it is, use it. If not, maybe substitute that term for something else, right? As you go forward in there. Okay, so let's look at some other ones. How about we are indispensable business partners with a brand focused on innovation and excellence. Okay, we are an indispensable business partner with a brand focused on innovation and excellence. So this one obviously is much more aspirational by using the word indispensable. Now, for me, again, I think it's a pretty hard stretch for internal audit to be indispensable in any organization, but that's just my own opinion, right? It's still, for a lot of people, that's a good aspiration, right? That you want to be seen as a part of the team, an indispensable part of the team, right? And so again, that is good from trying to come up with a vision of what you want to be in the future. It's maybe something that you'll never quite get to, but vision statements are intended to be aspirational, to get us closer to where we want to be, right? There's an old saying, if you want to get to the top of the mountain, don't aim for the top of the mountain, aim for the stars, and hopefully you'll land on the mountain, right? And so that's kind of what this is. Aim higher than where you really want to be, so that even though you don't quite make it all the way there, you're getting to where you really want to be. Okay. Now, this one again, it talks about innovation and excellence. So again, if those are terms that are important for your organization, then maybe it's a good idea to have it in there, right? If your organization really values innovation, they see themselves as an innovative organization, they're always pushing innovation, maybe it's one of the company values, then having the word innovation in here is going to be good, right? Because it will resonate with the people in your organization who are hearing this. But again, if your company is not innovative, if they don't want to be innovative, then that's probably not a word that we should use. Now, this last one, again, I'm going to read it again. We are an indispensable business partner with a brand focused on innovation and excellence. To me, this just feels a little too generic, just like the first one that I read to you, because that vision statement could apply to lots of different parts of your organization, right? What makes it specific to internal audit? So could you take something like that and actually, add to it, modify it so that it's more relevant to actually what you do or what we do, right? Assurance and advisory as an example. Okay, our next one. We are a highly capable, independent function which is relied upon by the audit committee and executive management to provide controls assurance and advisory services, and to be a catalyst for positive change and the ability to respond to risks. Now, there's a lot of really good things in this one, but it's long, right? And so, because it's longer, it allowed the group to include a lot of things, but maybe it's harder to memorize, harder to quip off, right? And to get people to understand what it is. And so I'll give you a couple of examples here, right? Is that one way that vision statements are really good is inspiring your team. And so, for the organizations where, they see more value, they provide more value, the whole team is pulling the wagon in the same way. Usually those teams all have the vision statement memorized as well. And so what was interesting on the call is as we went around, one of the people said, yeah, we have a vision statement, but nobody on our team knows what it is. And we kind of laughed about it, right? Because often that's the case. But there was one or two of the organizations that were like, nope, everybody on our team actually memorizes it and knows exactly what it is. And when they shared, what their vision was, again, it was short, it was concise, it was something that was easy for people to remember. And so there's a benefit in that because it helps to inspire your team. It also is an effective communication method with your peers, the other executives in the organization, and your audit committee. If you have something that is short and sweet and to the point, it's easier for people to digest it. Okay. In fact, one of the people on the call, they don't necessarily have a statement per se, but they've created a graphic that actually shows their vision. And so it's a little graphic that has some pillars and other things on it that makes it easy for people to just look at that and go, that's the vision, right? And so again, you can write it out in a sentence, or you could even create a visual like that, but making it simple for people to understand, simple for people to digest, simple for people to be able to, memorize and say back to you is usually a good thing. And so again, with this one, again, longer is fine if longer is good for you. For me, it's a little bit too long because it's harder to remember, right? Can you remember what I even just said, right? We are a highly capable, right? And so highly capable says something about the level of your staff, right? And so that is meaning that you're going to have very capable and competent people on your team, which means you're going to do things like invest in training for them. You're going to pay better so you can have higher caliber people on your team. Independence, okay, we know about that, right? But it also talks about the stakeholders, specifically the audit committee and executive management. And that's one thing that I really do like about this is there's clarity on who the primary stakeholders are. And so in this organization, they put audit committee and executive management. Now, in a highly regulated organization, you may put regulators in there too, right? Depending on who your key stakeholders are, and if you choose to kind of list them out in the vision statement. So again, it talks about controls assurance and advisory services, which we've heard from several of the other ones as well. But then at the end, they say they're a catalyst for positive change. And so again, catalyst, that is a very aspirational word, which is good to have aspirational words in vision statements. Positive change, I'm not quite sure that I know exactly what that means, because positive is a very subjective word. And so maybe there's a better word that could be used than positive. I don't know. But to me, that it's a little bit subjective. But I love the end of it where it says, and we have the ability to respond to risk, right? Because again, ultimately, we don't know what all the risks are going to be 5 years from now, but it would be really nice if we had the ability to respond to those risks, whatever they were, right? And so it shows that they're taking a more risk-based approach, that they're, being prepared for being able to do things, in whatever it may need to be. Okay. So a couple more on here, and then we'll wrap up the video. So the next one, striving to be a team of world-class professionals helping shape the future of the organization. So again, it's very generic, like a couple of them that we talked about before. I don't know. I couldn't tell this was about audit. It could be about anybody, but it uses some words that I think are interesting, right? To be a team. Okay. And so again, that word team can be very powerful, right? That you're a part of the team, that you have a team of what? World-class professionals. So again, that term, world-class professionals, is that a term that resonates with your organization? If your organization uses that term, then it's really good to have that in here. If they use some other word that is equivalent to world-class, maybe it's excellence, maybe it's enablers, maybe it's whatever, then maybe consider using words that are already in your company's strategic plan or vision statement. Because again, those words are going to make a lot of sense to people in your organization who are reading or looking at this vision statement. Now, shaping the future of the organization, that is very aspirational, right? And again, is that a job of internal audit? Some people may think it is, other people may not, right? And so for this organization, it was important for them to want to shape the future of the organization, and that's okay, right? Others of you may look at that and say, "Whoa, shape the future of the organization. That's not our role, right? Our role is only to provide assurance and advisory work." That's fine, right? Because the important thing is for you to tailor your vision statement to what is applicable to your organization, right? That's why I say don't just copy somebody else's, but make it relevant to your organization. Okay, the last one for today. We are a flexible, highly skilled assurance and consulting function that adapts to the needs and risks of our organization. Okay. So again, some different words that are in there. Flexible. Well, flexible, means kind of what we've talked before about, like responding to risks in the organization, that you're flexible. You're able to move, right, your audit plan and change things around to be flexible as the organization is changing. To me, I think that's a very good thing, right? Because internal audit should be much more dynamic and flexible and responding and adaptable, right? These are all words that could be used to the changing needs of the organization, to the changing risks of the organization, right? And also use the word highly skilled function, right? Which again is similar to, I think in one of the other ones we had highly capable, right? And so again, highly skilled, highly capable, whatever is the right term for your organization would be the one that you would want to use. But anyway, I've gone through today and I've shared with you some actual vision statements. We talked a little bit about, at least what I like about them, what I think could be improved. But the important thing now is for you to go back and think about, okay, do we have a vision statement? Based on some of these that we went through today, are there ways that we could improve what we have? If we don't have one, right, could we maybe use some of these as a way for us to start shaping our own vision statement? Because I will tell you again, as we talked about in the Audit Leader Forum, there's a lot of benefit in having a very concise, a very descriptive, a very tailored vision statement for your internal audit function. It's motivating for your team. It helps your team in feeling like they're more part of a team, right? They understand what it is that you're doing. They understand why you're maybe making changes so that you can get to this future state. And it also, again, shows more relevance and understanding to people like your audit committee and the executives and peers in your organization, because now they can go, now I understand, right? But it needs to be in terms that they can understand. Because, I find this a lot is, each area, again, whether it's law or tax or accounting or auditing, I'm just throwing out a few, right? We all have our own words, and in those disciplines, we know what those words mean. But to people outside of the or outside of the function or discipline, maybe those words mean something different. Maybe they have no idea what it means, right? And so, whatever we can do when we're creating vision statements to make it so it's easy for other people to understand, the better, right? Again, in a lot of these vision statements that I referred to today, they're using a lot of words that are in the standards, a lot of words that internal auditors use, but they're not words that other people are used to hearing necessarily. Value added, assurance and advisory, uh, you know, things like that. And so, again, just consider as you're looking at, as you're reassessing, how can we make this a little bit better than what we have now? Because that's the important thing, is making these incremental changes along the way to just get better. Because I will tell you that the groups that I've worked with, internal audit functions and the chief audit executives at organizations that are very clear on their vision statement, they're very clear on their strategy. Those are the groups that actually get a lot more support. They get a lot more respect. They get a lot more budget than other people do. And so, again, it's an often overlooked area that can actually pay some huge dividends if you'll actually just take a little bit of time to improve. So with that, I'm going to wrap up for today, and I'll see you on the next video.